And thank you so much for the Grand Valley State staff for making this opportunity available for me. You know, I was hearing something with someone before my presentation today, and I said, you know, every time I do these kinds of things and I start preparing for it and making my remarks and writing them down, and I come to these meetings and all of a sudden I say, geez, you know, why do I prepare for anything? Because everything changes because people start talking and there's a real, you know, a perspective that I thought, well, I didn't realize that this is what it's all about, the Hauenstein Center, and about leadership and all those things. And I'll tell you, I am so impressed, and I am so excited about the leadership that is found in this room. For many of you that I've shared a few moments with before the luncheon started, I tell you, this is truly a great community, and it is truly a community that has good leadership in it currently, and I think one that has great future leadership available for us as well. I want to talk a little bit about inspiration, you know, because my life and who I am today has been shaped by people who have inspired me to become who I am today. We know that there are many examples in West Michigan. Mr. Hauenstein is certainly one. I understand you had Reverend Ed Dobson, a friend of mine as well, and you know, he certainly is an inspirational leader. There are many, many that are inspirational leaders for us in West Michigan. But there are also many leaders and individuals who are inspirational for all of us that we sometimes don't even recognize. And I want to share a little bit about us making sure that we are aware and looking for and recognizing those individuals who may not have the names or who may not have the public recognition, but certainly they are part of your life. And sometimes we have a tendency to kind of overlook those individuals. You know, my life started in Jakarta, Indonesia. I was born there in 1948. And what I found out, and as someone once said, that, you know, you can never connect the dots until you look backwards, until you look at what happened in the past. And I want to tell you that my greatest inspiration came from my parents. And my parents, in 1954, made a decision that when I look back on it, I says, man, I tell you, they were probably in their early 30s. They already had 6 children. And I looked at that and said, would I do that if I was in my late 30s? Now, I don't have 6 children, but if I had children, period. Because what they did is they taught me a value with that decision that still carries on for me today. What they did is, if you know a little bit about the history of Indonesia, it was a Dutch colony for many, many years. And then they gained their independence, and then President Sukarno became their first president. And he became a communist leader. He became like the puppet for the Russian government and began to instill those values into the culture of Indonesia. My father, who was an educator, was being told what to teach. And he felt that that was dangerous. He felt that that was not good for his family, for his children. And so what my mom and him decided to do was to leave Indonesia. Like I say, early 30s, 6 children, successful. I mean, if I would categorize it, we probably lived the upper middle class lifestyle. We had a home, we had a summer home, we had a car, we had servants, we had all those trappings of, you know, of success. And yet, because my parents felt like that this was not good for their children, they were willing to make that sacrifice. Because you see, at that time, in the early stages of President Sukarno's presidency, people could leave. All they had to do was leave everything behind to the government. Their bank accounts, their homes, their cars, their everything else. Literally, my parents said it is worth the sacrifice and were willing to take literally one suitcase and $100 that we had to find, that my dad had to find on the black market in order to get some money to take out of the country. So one of three things which I want to talk a little bit about today, and then I want to get some interaction from you. Three things that for me was important and that has shaped my leadership style. One is that we must do what we can to improve the life of others. It is not about us, it's not about me, it's about others. And the thing is, part of that is because I think when my parents made that decision, it left such an impression on me that I said, wow, you know, they cared more about us rather than, well, we can, you know, we can ride the storm out. We can enjoy our lives here, and we can enjoy all the trappings of success here, and, you know, Sukarno will go away at some point in time and all these things. Because their parents and their brothers and sisters said, you are crazy for leaving. Look what you're leaving behind. And then about 10, 15 years later, they were all crying to get out, and they couldn't get out. They couldn't get out. So it is important that one of the values that has shaped me and has inspired me to do what I'm doing is because it is that principle, that value that my parents taught me, that whatever we do, whatever I do, it must be done to improve the life of others. Because if anything else other than that, for that reason, I think leadership fails. So it's what's very important for me to learn that. And I think if we can keep that in the forefront of our thinking and of our behaviors and our actions, I think we will all become a better city, a better state, a better nation. Secondly, leadership must reflect a passion. Whatever that passion is for you, you must be passionate about something. You must be willing to do whatever it is that will help us understand better about your passion. Now, for those of you who know me, one of my greatest passions is my involvement and my commitment to eliminate racism. You know, racism impoverishes all of us. Don't just think that racism is only for helping, a certain particular ethnic group. We all are going to receive the effects of racism. And, you know, sometimes inspiration comes from people who are not nice people. The inspiration for this, that I have for this passion to make sure that the world that I will leave behind for my children, for my grandchildren, will be less racist than what I found it when I came here. You know, as I said to you before, sometimes the inspiration comes from people who are not nice people. I remember my mom telling us that let me back up, from Indonesia, we fled Indonesia and we went to the Netherlands. Now, how many of you know a Chinese, Dutch-speaking individual? Ik kan Hollands spreken, yeah? But anyway, so she was telling me this story that when we arrived in the Netherlands, and then we went to church, when we walked in as a family and moved and sat in the pew where a white woman was seated, she got up and left to move to another pew. It is learning from being inspired by other folks. For example, in the 6th grade, when I first arrived in Grand Rapids, we arrived in Grand Rapids in January 1960. And I attended Baxter Christian School. My father was an educator. Some of you can probably relate to this. My father was an educator. We arrived on a Friday and he said, or on a Saturday, and he said, Monday you will be attending school. I'm thinking, how do I get to school? I don't even know how to speak English. But you will get there because you'll learn better when you get there. But one of my classmates said to me at that time and said, you are okay, but you have to watch out for those Negroes. 6th grade, Christian school. Then I learned from another example of a great woman that I met. One of the things that I was fortunate to have been able to do is to learn leadership skills from also participating and being involved with the Christian Reformed Church in North America. I took a 7-year call to a ministry called the Ministry on Racial Reconciliation for the Christian Reformed Church in North America. And one of the things that I was mandated to do was to help make the transitions for churches. Because at that time, in the 1970s and 80s, there was a lot of flight of churches from the urban centers to the suburbs. And there was a lot of misunderstanding about race and racism and all those kinds of things. But I met this woman, and I think this is what I'm talking about, finding individuals in your life who are unknown, but yet can give you such an inspiration and so many opportunities to learn of how to become a leader. This woman's name was Charlotte Bradley. She was a Zuni woman. And as the director of this Ministry in Racial Reconciliation for the Christian Reformed Church, I was responsible to a board, and that board was chosen from a lot of different groups of peoples, and we invited her to become a board member. And when I called her, she said, you know, I can't. I said, why can't you? She says, I have never been off the Zuni reservation. I have never been on an airplane. I don't even know how to fly out of here to get to Grand Rapids. And I said, well, what can we do? What can we do to help you at least make one meeting so that you can learn about us and learn more about your responsibilities? And she thought about it a little bit. She says, you know, I guess if I can bring my daughter with me, then maybe I'll feel safe to fly in an airplane and leave the reservation. And I said, okay, we'll do that. She came to her first meeting and she said, I got off the plane at Kent County Airport and I thought I was in a different country. And I never seen so many white people in the world. And so, as she sat in that meeting and then she decided to continue to be a board member, the first year, she didn't say anything at the board meeting. Nothing. She talked with us during lunch breaks, during dinner breaks. The second year, she didn't say anything. She just observed. The third year, she comes to the board meeting and says, I have decided to run for the Zuni Council, which is their form of government. And she says, I will be the first woman and the first Christian to run as a candidate. And we said, okay, are you going to talk there? And I will tell you that leadership and sometimes requires us to not assume things and to allow people to develop their own leadership styles and their own time. This woman was elected, and she sat in the Zuni Council for several years. So you see, what happened when she came on board is what I said before, is that racism does, or sexism does, impoverish us. Just think, if she would have been able to participate in the governmental process, in the political process earlier, how much better that society would have been. And just think of what we do to impoverish ourselves when we make assumptions about certain groups of peoples that does not allow us to benefit from their leadership skills. Let me just end that, because I don't want to spend a lot of time on that, but let me say this about personal experiences. The personal experience of having to experience that type of experience in one's own life is terribly difficult. People look at me and say, oh, but it can't be, you can't have, that can't happen to you. Well, it does happen. It does happen. It does happen to me, and it does happen to a lot of folks. My passion for this came because my father experienced it. In the 1960s, my father, who was at that time was an educator, his first job was a janitor here in Grand Rapids for a local wholesale floral company, which was fine. When he expressed his desire to become a teacher again, he was told, none of your degrees will count. You have to go back to college. All of your years, 19, 20 years of experience doesn't count. You have to go back to college. He was fine with that. And he did what was required of him, and then he got his teaching certificate and all this kind of stuff, went to teaching, and then all of a sudden, the parents wanted all of their children to be taught in his classroom. He was a very good teacher. The school district grew, and they added another 6th grade, they added another teacher, another immigrant from Hungary, and they became friends, and my father finds out that all of his degrees were counted, all his experience was counted, and he was given all the compensation equal to that. My father thought that that was not fair, and asked some questions, and no one in Grand Rapids wanted to touch it. Until 2 of his friends from church said, you know what, we know Representative Gerald Ford, who was representative at that time. And they went to the Representative Gerald Ford's office. They spoke to his Representative Ford, and he said, this is wrong, and he stepped in. He stepped in and said, this is wrong, and we will make it right. And he made it right. And so my passion is because when I was selected to become the director for the Ministry of Racial Reconciliation, my father, with tears in his eyes, told me this story. He never told us the story. And he said, and I said, well, why didn't you tell us the story? He says, I didn't want you children, didn't want my children to think that they have barriers to overcome that were unnecessary. I said, Dad, you should have told us, because we could have done something about that. And so my passion for racial justice was born because of that. And I will tell you that it still happens. I've been told by banks, you should work for someone else because you'll never be successful as a business owner. I've been told by one bank, and this is in the year 2001, I need 80% equity for a loan that you may want. Luckily, other banks said, no, we just require 20%. And then to find out that that same bank that asked me for 80%, I had to compete with one of their customers who was given a 20% requirement. So it just happened. And we only impoverish ourselves when we don't address it. Thirdly, leadership. To be leaders, we must make opportunities, not just look for them. You know, sometimes we have this tendency to fall into this, oh, my circumstances are this, and I guess I can't do that. That's not leadership. If your circumstances suck, change it. So leadership means that we must make opportunities, not just look for them. I want to share with you, there's a couple things that we've done here just on the street from this campus. Nam alluded to it a little bit. In 2006, we decided to buy the old Kindle Furniture Factory, which is just a half a mile west of the old bicycle factory where Grand Valley State University has a presence. And I received all kinds of phone calls that said, "Man, are you crazy? What's Eastern Floral doing in that neighborhood?" You know, those kinds of things. And to be honest with you, it was a business decision. It was a decision based on the fact that we needed to be more closely located downtown. We couldn't afford the prices in downtown proper. We needed to be close to the freeways, all those kinds of things. And we made the decision to buy it, and we're certainly happy that we did buy it. And so now it is becoming quite a activity center. Like Nam alluded to, we started a program because I'm passionate about small business and entrepreneurship, and we call it the International Center for Entrepreneurial Excellence. And we started with 5, and I think we got 7, but we've also got 2 in the pipeline now, so we'll have 9 small businesses there. And although the focus is not exclusive to, but the focus is on women and minority entrepreneurs. One of the tremendous assets that we're losing in West Michigan are those population groups, those demographics of entrepreneurs and business owners. And we need to recognize that we need all of us to rebuild our economy, and it takes leadership. It takes innovative, creative leadership and courageous leadership, because it is not a popular thing to talk about what is not happening. Because we certainly celebrate all the good things that's happening, but there are still segments of our population that are not benefiting from this great community. So that particular development has now become quite an activity center. We do a lot of wedding receptions. We do a lot of wedding ceremonies. We're starting to do wedding ceremonies there. We're doing fundraisers there, private parties, corporate parties. And what is beautiful about that is because we are now creating in that neighborhood an energy and an excitement by individuals who've never been part or even visited that neighborhood to say, you know what, maybe it isn't as bad as what we thought it is. Because when we first opened up, what was the first question they asked? What's security like? I tell them, we put out expensive patio furniture because we have a nice little patio. We don't chain it down. We have had no graffiti. We've had 1 break-in, but it was some kids, because they had to be kids, because they had to be pretty small to get through that window. You know, but no, nothing. And the neighborhood has embraced us, and again, this is what I think is what we need to do. We need to make sure that whatever we do as leaders, we think about the other person. We need to be passionate as leaders. We need to be passionate about something. We can't be everything to everyone. We need to be passionate about something. And thirdly, we must make the opportunities. Leadership must create the opportunities. They just can't wait or try to find opportunities. We must find and make those opportunities for ourselves. Let me end by sharing with you a remark and make this your challenge. It's a remark by a person named Samuel Johnson. And he makes this statement: nothing will ever be attempted if all possible objections must first be overcome. Don't accept, no, you can't do it. Or no, we haven't done it before. Or let's figure out what will happen if we did it. Sometimes leadership requires us to be courageous, to take the risks, and to step out because we understand and we are passionate about the fact that when we do so, we will help improve the lives of others. Thank you very much. any questions, I certainly will try to answer those.
Some of us have always been glad to remember that you went to Grand Valley.
I do too. I learned a lot of card games, so. Question.
You cited a couple examples about your dealings with banks and racism in Grand Rapids. Still today, I wonder if you had any more remarks regarding that, like how big is the problem in Grand Rapids? I think a lot of people under the illusion that their racism is not a problem anymore, like we've surpassed those attitudes in the past 50 years. So I just wonder what you say to somebody who thinks that.
Well, we certainly have made great strides, and I don't. And again, this is something which I want to at least put out on the table. It isn't something that I want to dwell on, but you see, we have this what I call West Michigan niceness. We have this real ability to talk very nice to each other, but when it comes down to the nitty-gritty, what are we actually doing? And sometimes it isn't because we're evil people. It's sometimes we just haven't placed a lot of value or a high value on inclusion. And so when we don't place a high value on inclusion, it doesn't happen. So when I talk to organizations and they want to talk about diversity and they want to do, they say all the right things, and I say, well, the only way you can accomplish what you have stated your goals are is to be intentional. And nothing happens unless you're intentional. You can talk and you can say all the nice things, and then as soon as it hits a certain point, conversation stops and the action stops. So it still is, it is still happening. I think it's not as prevalent as it used to be. I think we have institutions now that understand the importance, especially, look at our global economy. I mean, when I talk to folks and say, businesses today who want to survive in the next 10 to 20 years must be able to manage diversity. If they can't manage diversity, they will fail. The world is changing too fast. The world is shrinking. And I will tell you that this is also a challenge for us in West Michigan. Many of the major companies, the Van Andel Institutes, the Herman Millers, the Steelcase, they understand the importance of diversity. If we don't create a welcoming environment for people of all walks of life, of all ethnicities, we will become impoverished in West Michigan. You look, we were decorating the Van Andel Institute lobby for Christmas. We do that at Easter Floral. It was on a Saturday and a Sunday. The people that were walking through there were predominantly Asian. If we don't create an environment that appreciates their culture and appreciates their contributions and shows that we are open to being an inclusive community, they will not stay here. It's that serious. Yeah.
You said during the course of the campaign that you did not run as a career politician. So what do you think would set yourself apart from, as a non-career politician, from the rest who pursue politics professionally?
Well, when I made the decision to run for the political office, I did it because I was, again, as a leader, you must have some passion. You must be passionate about something. And there was two things that I wanted to accomplish. First of all, I wanted to win. Well, that didn't work. But secondly, I wanted to bring together and show this community that we can come together as people from all walks of life, so that we can collectively work together to address the challenges that we face today. And on that Tuesday night when I made my concession speech and looking into the audience of people that were supporting me, the disappointment certainly was there for not winning. But I'll tell you, I was so excited because in that room was about 100 some people there who were black, brown, and white, who were Republicans and Democrats, who were young and old, who were, you know, business owners, who were workers, who were, I mean, it reflected the beauty of Grand Rapids. And I think as we get more and more of that, we will certainly become a better community. And I think politicians, and I don't know, and I you know, I'm not saying that I wouldn't fall into that trap, but the problem with politics is that, you know, we get caught up into this power struggle when you get to Lansing or Washington. And then what happens? And I think for me, it was not running for another career, because I'm too stinking old to be another career. But it was really for a desire and a willingness to, for X amount of years, to see if there can be made a difference. So at least to change the conversation. And I think that's what I would ask all of you here to do that. I mean, to just make that commitment to see if there's a way in which you can change the conversation to enrich the community that we all love, that we live in. Thank you so much.